Okay, so our game is working fine. If we press play, we can go through the pipes, but we don't have a score. So how can we detect the score and add the score and show it on the screen? So that's what we're going to do in this video. So to detect the score, we have to modify the prefab. So our column prefab, I mean. So go to your column prefab, double click, and here you can see that this is your prefab. This is the prefab that you made. It's an empty object that contains two pipes. Alright, so what we're going to do is that we're going to select the column here where it says column. We're going to select the column and we're going to add a new component to this column. The component that we're going to add is a box collider 2D. Okay, we're going to add a box collider 2D to our column. So it will look like this. We're going to hit the edit collider inside the box collider component, and we can edit it from the component itself or from here from the scene. So we're gonna just drag it all the way over here. If you can see now, I cannot see it now. I see nothing because I clicked somewhere else and now my collider disappeared. We can just select the column again, and if you prefer it, you can do it from here from the component itself. It's gonna be a little bit easier. We can just drag the size like this, however we want. The Y, we can drag the Y. We can make it shorter like this, and the offset, we're gonna place it over here. We can play around with the offset along the x-axis to place it wherever we want along the x-axis. So over here is okay. Okay, so this is gonna be our collider. Let me make it a little bit less wider, like this maybe, a little bit shorter, like this, and then with the offset, I'm gonna just place it right next to. I'm gonna place it right next to the pipes. Okay, so this is gonna be our trigger collider. So whenever our bird collides with this trigger, then we're gonna add 1 to the score. So to make this a trigger, to make this collider a trigger, we're gonna go to the box collider component and we're gonna hit is trigger. When we hit this checkbox, what we're saying to Unity is that we don't want our bird to collide with this collider. We don't want our bird to actually collide like if it was a wall or a ceiling. We want the bird to go pass through this, but we want to make this collider a trigger so that we know that we have scored 1 point. All right, so we have done this. Now we can go back to the scene. So to go back to the scene, you can click here in the hierarchy in this arrow to go back. And now that we're here, now if we press play and if we pause the game, so we press the pause button and we select one of our columns, we can see, if we zoom in, we can see that now our column has the collider. It has the trigger, so everything worked fine. We have modified our column successfully. Now what we need to do is that we need a way to detect that trigger or that collider. So we're gonna go to our Visual Studio, and in Visual Studio we're gonna go to our bird script, and in our bird script we have an update method, a start method, a bird rotation method that we can collapse like this. And after the bird rotation, what we're going to do is that we're going to define a special method. There are special methods like the start method, the update method, but there are other special methods that we can define. For example, there's one called onTriggerEnter2D. So what this method does is that it listens for trigger events. So when our bird collides with a trigger, then this method over here executes. And this is the collider 2D that we're passing in as an argument. That means that this collision is going to be the actual trigger that we will pass as an input. Okay, so now what do we do? So if first of all, we need to check if the collision comes from the column. So if collision dot compare tag. So if the tag of this collision, if the tag of the object of this collision is a column, so if we have collided if we have triggered the collider of the column, then we want to print we have scored. Okay, and this is how we would detect the score. So now if you hit Ctrl S, and let's go back to the Unity editor and hit play. Now if we go through the pipes and we go like this, now if we stop the game and we go to the console, you can see that we have scored has triggered 3 times. If you want this to be in a collapsed way, you just hit this collapse tab over here and everything will collapse. And here it will specify the number of times that this has executed. Okay, so now that we know how to detect the score, we want to actually see the score in the screen somehow, right? So to display our score, we will create a canvas game object. So to create a canvas game object, here in the hierarchy, right click and you will go to UI, and inside UI there's an option called canvas. So click that and you will create a canvas and an event system. For now, don't worry about the event system. That's for something that's automatic and you need to have it there. But inside the canvas, if you select the canvas, here in the inspector, you can see that we have many different options. And once you create the canvas, you can see that there's like an outline, like a white outline in here. So that means that you have created a canvas. So we need to actually modify some of the fields of the canvas. So here in the inspector, where it says canvas, it says screen space overlay. So we're gonna click on here, and instead of screen space overlay, we're gonna set it to screen space camera. And now it says that a screen space canvas with no specified camera acts like an overlay. Okay, so now we have to actually set an object for the camera. So we have our main camera. So we're gonna select our. Okay, so if you select the main camera, everything goes to, you have the main camera components. So go back to the canvas and now just drag the main camera to here, or you can just click here and select the main camera, the circle. I think it's a little bit easier if you select the circle here. Okay, so now we can see that the canvas is gonna be on the main camera view. Okay, so the canvas is gonna occupy the space that the camera is providing. Okay, so for the sorting layer, we're gonna create a new sorting layer for the canvas. So click default, add sorting layer, and click the plus icon, and we're going to create a new layer called canvas, like this. So now select the canvas here in the hierarchy and set the sorting layer to canvas. Alright, so now the sorting layer is canvas. Now here in the canvas scaler, the UI scale mode is set to constant pixel size. We're gonna click on here and change this to a scale with screen size. And for the reference resolution, we're gonna type in the resolution that we're working with. We're working with a resolution of 900 by 1600 Okay, and then we have to here where it says screen match mode, we're gonna leave it at match width or height, and where it says match, here in this field, let's type in 0.5, like this. Okay, so we have set up the canvas as we need it to be. Now, if we select the canvas object here in the hierarchy, we can right click and we can create a UI text. So select UI and text, and we just have created a UI text inside the canvas. So this text is a child of the canvas. Okay, so you can see that default text appears here. If we zoom in, nothing appears here. So what we're going to do is that we're going to select the text, and we're going to change the name of the text to score, like this. So this text is going to be our score. So the text of the score, we want it to be 0 initially. The font, we're going to leave it to Arial for now. The font style, we're not going to do anything with that. We're gonna increase the font size. Well, if we increase the font size a lot, we can see that if we move the text here, it disappears. Okay, so how can we make it visible again? Okay, so to make it visible again, we have to set this horizontal overflow and this vertical overflow to overflow. So select overflow, and now you can see the text, but it is aligned to the left. We want to center it, so let's center the text like this. And now let's increase the size a little bit like this. Let's position the score at the top, and let's change the color for a white color, for example, and we'll give this text or our score, will give it a shadow. So add component, click the add component button and select shadow, and in here you can play with the effect distance along the x-axis and the y-axis. So play with it, and you can see that you will start to create a shadow. If you play with these components, you will create a shadow, and the shadow allows you to see the score more clearly. Okay, so we can, if you want, you can increase the size a little bit more, like this. Perfect. But now, if we play the game and we play it normally, we can see that we score, but the text doesn't update. So how do we update the text? Okay, so to update the text, we need to add some behavior to our score. So we're gonna go to our project, we're gonna go to our scripts folder, and then inside here we're gonna create a new C# script called score, like this. So now we're gonna attach this score script to our score object, and now we're gonna open the score script in Visual Studio. Okay, so in this script, what we need to do is that we need to update the text of the score. So we need to update the text, the text component and the text field of the score. Okay, so how do we do this? Okay, so first of all, we need to use a special Unity library called UI. So using Unity engine.ui. Okay, this engine will allow us to use UI elements inside the script. Okay, and now what we need to do is that we need to create we actually need to create let me see. Okay, what we need to do is that we need to create an integer. So int score equals 0. So we're going to create a variable called score, and this variable is going to be equal to 0. So let's do that. Let's also create a text variable called score text, like this. And inside the start method, we're going to say that score at the beginning of the game is equal to 0, and score text is equal to get component, and we're gonna get access to the text component of our game object. So we have access to our text component, and here we're gonna set the score text dot text. So score text is equal to the text component. So now we're saying score text dot text is equal to the score, but we cannot leave it like this because score is an integer and score text dot text is text. So how do we transform an integer to a string? So we say score dot to string. We have a method to transform the integer to a string. Okay, so now everything is set up correctly, but we need to create a new method. So let's create a method for when the bird triggers the score. Okay, so let's create a method called void scored, for example. And in this method, we're gonna call this method whenever we score. So inside this method, we want to say score plus plus. So we add 1 to score, and after we add 1 to score, what we want to say is that score text dot text. So we want to update the score value, and then we want to update the text on the screen. So equals score dot to string, like this. Okay, and now we have to make this method, we have to make it public, like this. And now we have to go to the bird script, and inside the bird script we need a reference. We need a reference to the score script. Okay, so to do this, we're going to say public score, and you might ask yourself, okay, and why do we need a reference to the score? Well, we need a reference to the score because we want to call this scored function or method every time we score, and we know when we score inside the bird script, because when we trigger the column, it means that we have scored. So inside here we can say score dot scored, like this, and when we call this method, we will be calling this method over here, and we will be updating the score and the text on the screen and our score text on the screen. So now we go back to Unity. What we need to do is that we need to assign a reference. If we select our bird, we can see that here in the bird script, there's a field, and it is waiting for the score script or the game object that has the score script. So if we select this, we can select this score object that has the score script, and if we hit Ctrl S and we save the game, everything should work now perfectly. So now we go through the pipes, we can see that the score updates. So every time we go through the pipes, the score equals the score plus 1, and then the text updates to the value of the score, to the current value of the score. Okay, so everything seems to be working fine. So that's gonna be it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.